Thank you for joining me on a quilting tale today. My name is Shaylin, and in this video I wanted to share my progress on my 2025 Year of Sewing Machines block of the month. It is a pattern by Heather Briggs of My So Quilty Life. And the last time I shared, I had only made the January block, which looks like this. Each block has a unique sewing machine that's making a little quilt or a smaller block here. This was a mitten, and every month a new block is released. So it's still a mystery. It's still going on. So far, it has released through September, so just a few more months to go. And so in this video, I am going to show you the progress on February, March, and April. This was my final summer work in progress spin when I was doing my Wheel of Whips this summer. And so I just kind of wanted to wrap up those summer projects with sharing about this one. Now on this quilt, I am not using any pre-cuts or a certain fabric line. I am solely shopping my stash. And so my first January block kind of set the tone for what kind of fabrics I'll be using. And so as I make each block, it's going to get a little more challenging trying to make a cohesive look with the fabrics that I'm selecting. So I thought that would be a good topic for this video. Rather than show step by step of how the blocks come together, I wanted to talk about the fabric choices in particular for each block and how I'm using previous blocks to build off of. So there will be a little bit of it coming together, but a lot of this is just about using what I already have in my stash and finding that nice cohesive look that I think will look lovely in the end. So let's go ahead and get started. I will show you February. So for February, I'll be making these little hearts on a block, and I wanted to do a pink or red machine, but I also want to keep my January block in mind. It's not a bright green, it's a kind of bluer green, and so I just want to keep in mind what will look nice with this one. So I held a bunch of fabrics up to it, and I decided that pastel pinks and bright pinks weren't the way to go. So this first block is kind of dictating the colors that I'll be using in future blocks. So let me show you what I ended up picking out. I decided to go with some more corally pinks and darker pinks for contrast. So for the machine body, I'm going to be using this print here. And then for those dark parts of the machine, I thought I'd use these darker circles here. And then I learned from last time, if I zoom in here, you can see that using just a solid white or something very close to solid white background sort of blends in with the background of the block. So I wanted to choose a low volume that would stand out a bit more. So I chose this one here with these little heart-shaped strawberries. And then each heart has a consistent dark left side. So that's going to be this fabric. And then there's a more scrappy right side for different prints. And so I chose these four that I thought would look nice with it. So those are going to be the fabrics I use, and then I have the consistent brown and then my white background that I'll be using. And I think these will look nice next to the January block. And then going forward with future months, I'll hold up other fabric choices to both of these. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these into a bunch of pieces, and then I'll start assembling. Here is February's block finished, and I just love how this one turned out. I'm especially proud of lining up all these little stars and trying to get the edges so that they don't go crooked or slanted. I was very intentional when I cut the fabric to make sure I had, a clean cut going down the same spot of the shapes when I was doing rows or columns. And so I think that extra attention to detail really paid off with the way the machine looks. And then the dots are just the right size in these darker pink strips to show that they're dots. I was a little worried with a larger print that they would get cut off, but they look really great. I didn't focus so much on centering those ones, but it just worked out well the way they were cut. And then the 4 hearts with the darker portion just look so cute, the contrast there. I really love those. So overall, really happy with this block. And you can see how it looks with the January block up above. I'm definitely going for a more muted color palette, not the bright colors or the pastel colors. For the pinks, I was trying to choose darker ones that weren't quite red, but weren't as vibrant either. So I'm gonna have to be careful the farther along I get in these, trying to keep that more muted, darker tone in mind when I'm choosing fabrics. So that takes me to March. So for March, you can see Heather's pattern has the clover, and she's kind of matched the machine with a green machine for the clover. And I'm going to have to break away from matching colors like that on this one, because looking through my stash, green is just not a color I have a lot of. That and purple, I noticed, are my smallest amounts. And when I look at what I do have, when I go to my scraps, I either don't have the right size for the colors I like. For instance, this one I think could work well, but it's too small, and I don't have anything wider than this. If you've seen my organization video, how I sort my scraps and process them, I tend to cut them in strips of certain sizes that are commonly used, like 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 5, and 7. And so I need 3.5 or larger, and I just did not have the greens I was looking for. And lately I've even been holding on to these smaller pieces because I've been doing English paper piecing, and I thought, well, they might come in handy for that, or if I ever want to try a scrap quilt or crumb quilt. I thought, just hold on to them, especially green, because like I said, I just don't have as much. But even those larger pieces I have, they're either this bright spring green, or they're Christmas, or they just might be too dark, too pastel-y, or even the colors inside. Like this one, I thought, well, maybe, but then you have this bright pink and blue, and so I have to keep that in mind, the overall look of the quilt, and I'm trying to stay away from the really bright, vivid colors on this quilt. So let me show you what I ended up selecting from a limited number of options. I had to keep color and the size of the pieces I have in mind. So this is going to be the fabric I use for the body of the machine, and I chose this one because I thought this peach color for the background would look nice with the 2 machines that I've already made, and it does have a lot of green in it. And then I have this fabric. It's not a bright grassy green, it's a little bit darker. Again, I'm looking for those darker, more muted colors, and I thought it would coordinate well with the leaves in here. And so that's going to be the trim of the machine and these darker pieces. So that leaves me with the clover, and it's a scrappy one, and so there's 4 different fabric pieces needed in green to make the clover. So these are the ones that I'm kind of narrowed down to. This one is a bit darker. It's from the With a Flourish line. I used this fabric line in my Sparrows quilt, but I didn't use any of the green. I think there was just this one fat quarter that came with it. And then the remaining 4 all come from the same line, and its name is escaping me right now, but I thought they're not too bright and not too pastel in color. This one does have color in it, but it has the peach and it has that darker pink like my February block. So even though there's color in that one, I thought that could work nicely. So I just need to narrow it down. I think I for sure want to use this darker one. I might do away with the stripe just because it's not reading as green with all the white in it. But I thought that would be the clover. And then for the background, I'm hoping I have enough here. I pulled all the scraps I had with this little cross-stitch looking green in the background here. So again, I want to just make the background of the clover block pop so it doesn't just melt away into the background, the white solid background of the block. So that's my choice for this one. A little tougher, but I think this is going to look nice. So I'll go ahead and start cutting up those pieces. I really like how this March sewing machine block turned out, even though the background of the machine isn't green because of the leaves. There's so much greenery in it, and it wasn't a directional print, and so it just has this random scattered look that looks nice when it's all put together. And I like how the green is pulled in from the main fabric here down below, so still get lots of green for a March block. With fabrics like these, I was very intentional about cutting along a line so that you get straight lines and columns and rows. That does make a difference. So just when making those initial cuts, try to line it up with an existing line in the fabric. And the same thing with the dots. You know, there were those rows and columns of dots. And so I just tried to make sure that when I cut, I was evenly spaced along the dots going down, not, starting to go a little crooked. And that gave me this nice centered dot line here in the stem. What's also nice about this peach background is that it will be next to the February block, which has peach in it. And so while I'm trying to choose colors that will look nice together and be a little more muted, I'm also, the farther along I get, going to try to pull in existing colors so it just looks more cohesive. For April, it's another two-toned sewing machine, and so I think I'm going to do two colors instead, kind of like March. I liked how this gold looked with the 3 blocks I already have, so instead of doing a bright yellow, I thought I'd tone it down with gold and then trim it with the purple here, which has these really lovely gold leaves that will look nice with that. And then I have that peachy color in the middle again that will tie into the last 2 blocks. So that's going to be the machine body. So all the dark blue in here is going to be that purple floral. And for the bird, I was asking my oldest daughter what colors she thought would look nice with these fabrics, and she was asking if I thought I could make it a robin because that's her favorite kind of bird. And so I was studying pictures of robins and looking at their coloring. They have these dark heads, almost black, and then their bodies are a darker gray, still pretty dark. But then you have the breast, which is this bright orangey rust color. So I'll show you the fabrics I pulled that I'm going to use to make the robin. Now this is going to require me to alter the pattern a little bit because the pattern only has this light blue and then the dark wing, and so I'm going to be incorporating more colors in there. But this is going to be the breast of the robin. The head is going to be that almost black. It's my darkest gray that I have. I'm going to do the tail feathers and the main part of the body in this dark gray, and then the wing, just to make it stand out a little bit, is going to be a little bit lighter with that gray. I think I will pull a tiny piece of this fabric to do the beak. It's going to be a really small piece. So because it has a bright yellow beak, but I'm trying to avoid bright colors, so I'll pull that gold. And then for the background of the block, found this one here that I thought would be great. It looks springy like April. It has the purple and the peach like this fabric here. So I think this is going to be a really fun one to put together. And so I'm going to start that now. And now I have all the pieces for the robin block ready. Unlike the last two I made, I haven't cut all the pieces for the rest of the sewing machine because there are so many pieces to this and I need my little alphabet markers to do the robin. So for the beak I need a 1-inch square, and I have all these white roses that I want to try to keep off as much as possible and just keep the gold. So what I have here is a 1-inch strip, and to cut down I'm going to use my ruler, and because this will be the sew and flip method, one side of this diagonal here between the 1-inch marks is going to be visible. So I'm just going to move this ruler around until I have as little white as possible showing. And so it looks like right about here. So when I flip, I'll want this lower portion of the triangle it makes to be what's showing. So there'll be a little bit of the black line of the leaf, but this white portion here will get cut off or be in the seam allowance. So that's where I'm going to trim. So this looks like a lot of white, but just remember when it's stitched and flipped, it'll look more like this. So it'll be mostly the gold showing. Here's the finished robin, and I am so thrilled with the way it turned out. Not only is the background going to tie in nicely with the purples and peaches to the trim of the sewing machine, but I thought the body of the sewing machine, this Forgotten Memories by Minky Kim, it has this thin black line that draws the roses, and I think that black will tie in nicely with the dark colors in the robin. But with these lighter colors and the light background with the blossoms, it's still going to look very springy for April. So now I'm just going to make the body of the sewing machine, and we'll get this 6.5-inch block tied in with it. Here's my finished April block. I think this one is my favorite yet. I just love how everything ties in together. The colors in the bird play nicely with the body of the machine. The gold in the purple floral looks good with the body, and it's a nice contrast with the gold. And then of course there's those little flowers in the background of the bird block that tie in with the purple. So I feel like it all just fits so wonderfully together, and I love the vintage look of this machine too. And then here's a sense of how they're all looking together with those more muted tones. I think this is going to be just beautiful, and so I'll just continue keeping the machine colors I already have in mind as I choose new ones going forward. But I think that's going to be where I stop on these for now. I'm ready to work on another project, but I will keep going with this quilt. I don't know that I'll have it done by the end of the year. September was just released, so I still have a ways to go to get caught up. But they sure are pretty. I love each unique sewing machine and the blocks that you make for each one. They really could be their own quilt. So this is just a very fun pattern by Heather Briggs, and I'm so glad to be participating in this block of the month. I will definitely continue sharing the progress on this Year of Sewing Machines quilt, as well as the many other projects that I currently have in that Whip of the Week wheel. The whole point of the wheel was really to just focus on a project a week at a time, try to make a dent in it, but just keep it fun and fresh and a little bit of everything. Just it keeps it interesting. But I really do want to get another top finished. So I'm changing the whip of the week to the fall finish wheel now. And we're going to go ahead and give it a spin and see which quilt top is going to get finished this fall. Fingers crossed. Looks like it's going to be Knitted Blooms, a pattern by Lo and Behold Stitchery. And I've shared a couple videos on making the Knitted Blooms block. One was about my fabric choices and color inspiration for the solids in this quilt. And another was putting together the block. And since it's 24 of the same blocks, I'm not going to rehash how to make them, but I have found a few more things that have made it a bit easier as I've made a few more of these blocks. One of the things that I was trying out in the last video that had this block was adding this little vintage touch with a doily in the center. And I loved how that turned out. Even though it was a little tricky to sew with it, I think I've found a better way to do it. And so I will certainly share tips for incorporating a doily and a few more tips that have just helped me to piece more accurately and not have too small of a block so I can trim it down and make it look nice and uniform. So this is going to be a beautiful quilt top, I can already tell. And so I hope you'll stay tuned to see how it comes together. Because it will take a while, I'm sure I'm going to have some other videos in between, but my goal is to get this one finished before winter time. And I know I'm talking about having too many projects and getting one off the wheel, but I also have a beautiful Christmas quilt in mind and the fabric has come in for it. And so I am going to sneak a Christmas quilt in my projects as well. So stay tuned for a video on that one. I can't wait to share that one and just show you my plans for the beautiful, beautiful fabric. So there's still lots to look forward to as 2025 winds down. I can't believe I'm saying that. But I really appreciate you watching, and especially those of you who have subscribed to my channel. It means so much because it shows me that you're interested in how my quilts are coming along, and I hope you're finding some inspiration and just sparking creativity, or that it's helping you with your own quilting in some way. So thank you so much, and until the next one, I'll see you soon.